Going to call our meeting to order. If you could work your way to your seats, we'll get started with our introduction and presentation in just a minute.
You want me to wear this? Not everybody knows who I am, right?
What's that?
Not everybody knows who I am.
Yeah. I know
cards.
who you are. Okay, this meeting is called to order. I'm Executive Counselor David Wheeler. To my right is Executive Counselor Chris Pappas. He represents the Manchester area. And to my left is Counselor Joe Kenny. He represents the North Country. And we are the three members of this special committee that's conducting this hearing here tonight. This hearing is concerned with the proposed widening of the Everett Turnpike in the city of Nashua and the towns of Merrimack and Bedford. It is pursuant to RSA 230-14 and the Surface Transportation and Uniform Relocation Assistance Act of 1987. The purpose of this hearing is to determine the necessity of the occasion of the layout and to hear evidence of the economic and social effects and impacts on its location, consistent with the goals and objectives of such local planning as has been undertaken by the towns. Following the hearing, this committee will evaluate all matters brought to our attention and make definitive decisions relative to the layout. A representative from DOT will contact each owner whose property is affected and discuss individual concerns. It is therefore important that all individuals desiring to make requests or suggestions do so tonight. I would remind you that you have 10 days from the date of this hearing, 10 days from the date of tonight, to submit any other material you would like considered by this committee. At this time, I will ask Wendy Johnson, Project Manager of the New Hampshire Department of Transportation, to present in a formal manner the layout which she has proposed. After that happens, I will open the floor to those who wish to address the committee. I will request that all desiring to speak signify by their desire, raising your hand, and upon recognition by me, step to the microphone, state your name and address for the record, and make your statements, comments, or opinions. Please print your name and address on the sign-in sheet, or I will take green cards if you wish to speak, and if you decide maybe after you hear the presentation that you do want to speak and you haven't signed up, you can quietly slip behind the table, and Wendy has blank green cards, and she'll hand them to me, and we'll take you in order of sign up. With that, we'll call upon Wendy to give us the presentation for the layout.
Thank you, Councillor Wheeler and members of the special committee. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As stated, my name is Wendy Johnson, and I am the project manager with the New Hampshire Department of Transportation overseeing this very large and interesting project. Tonight, there will be a presentation of the proposed project followed by a public comment and testimony. We will try to be brief with the presentation of the proposed project, but there is a lot of information to go through to be sure everyone understands the project and what we are proposing. This proposal takes into account all the public comment that has been received, including the comments that were received previously during the two sets of public meetings held in Nashua, Merrimack, and Bedford. We are still interested in any additional contributions that people might provide by speaking tonight, submitting a comment card tonight, or providing in writing within 10 days following the hearing. If you'd like to submit something in writing, there are project informational maps. I think some of you may have gotten them at the door. At the entrance of the room with the contact information. The project informational map and the plans, as you see on the wall, are also available at the project website at www.everettturnpikewidening.com. Before we get started with the presentation of the proposed work, I'd like to introduce some of the team members who have been part of the project during its development. Presenters tonight will include Rob Faulkner, project manager from the consulting firm of CAJ, who will present the design. Chuck Schmidt, the New Hampshire Department of Transportation Administrator from the Bureau of Right-of-Way, who will summarize the right-of-way acquisition process. And John Evans, the NHDOT Air and Noise Program Manager and Environmental Coordinator, who will summarize the environmental review process. I would also like to introduce other members of the team that are here with us, but will not be presenting. From the New Hampshire Department of Transportation, Bill Cass, our Assistant Commissioner. Peter Staminos, the Director of Project Development. Dan Primo and John Hebert from the Bureau of Highway Design. Michael Licciardi from the Bureau of Bridge Design. Chip Johnson, Linda Schofield, and Diane Damakis, right-of-way agents from the Bureau of Right-of-Way. Paul Coddington, Chief of Administration for the Bureau of Right-of-Way, and Susan Hubschman, Hearings Coordinator for the Bureau of Right-of-Way. From the consulting firm of CHA, John Pirelli, Project Engineer. And from the consulting firm of McFarland Johnson, Mike Long, Project Manager, Dave Coe, Bridge Designer, and Jed Merrow, Environmental Scientist. Next, I'd like to provide a brief history of the project. The Everett Turnpike, the FEET, was constructed in the 1950s and 1960s from the Massachusetts border in Nashua northerly to the interchange with I-293 and New Hampshire Route 101 in Bedford. The Everett Turnpike actually extends from the Massachusetts border northerly to exit 14 in Concord, but for this evening we will only be discussing the few segments from Nashua northerly to Bedford. As you might imagine, the Turnpike quickly became a principal north-south arterial highway and a vital link for north-south travel for cars, trucks, and commercial vehicles. To date, all but 3 of the segments in this Nashua to Bedford section of the Turnpike have been substantially improved or widened. The 3 remaining segments are from Exit 8 to Exit 10 in Nashua and Merrimack, from Exit 11 to just south of Exit 13, the Manchester Airport Access Road in Merrimack, and from just north of Exit 13 to the I-293 New Hampshire Route 101 interchange in Bedford. The need to improve these 3 segments is witnessed every day by bottlenecks and reoccurring congestion that you are all too familiar with. This need was formally recognized following the completion of a feasibility study, and the project was subsequently entered into the 10-year plan, 10-year Transportation Improvement Plan in 2015. The basic outcome you will hear tonight from the formal presentation is that we are proposing to widen the Turnpike from 2 to 3 lanes in these 3 congested and narrow segments of the Turnpike. The purpose of this project is to improve transportation efficiency, reduce safety problems associated with the Turnpike congestion in Nashua, Merrimack, and Bedford for all users of the Turnpike while being sensitive to the needs of local communities, residents, and natural and cultural resources. As one of the main arterials in the New Hampshire highway system, it's important to maintain the mobility of people, goods, and services through this corridor. To be clear about what this project proposes, it's only going to look at these 3 segments and widen those segments to 3 lanes. This project does not propose to modify any toll plazas, nor does it include any work to the interchanges, with the exception of the tie-in areas to match into the new wider Turnpike. The project does not propose any tolling changes and is funded under the current tolling structure. But getting back to the need for the project, traffic volumes on the Turnpike have grown substantially in recent years, resulting in frequent congestion and poor levels of service on several road segments. Level of service is a measure of how well or how poorly a roadway handles traffic volumes. Levels of service is similar to a report card for a roadway capacity and flow of traffic and how it works on the same scale from A to F. Level of service A represents a free-flowing condition with no backups or delays. Think of it as being able to drive the speed limit and change lanes whenever you want. No delay, free-flowing traffic. A level of service C is some congestion during peak periods, and a level of service F represents extreme congestion with major delays. Think of this as being in bumper-to-bumper traffic, changing lanes is difficult, speeds are significantly reduced. It's really a breakdown in traffic flow. There are other contributing factors to level of service, such as shoulder width and the geometry or shape of the roadway, or downstream bottlenecks. But unlike a good report card, we are not looking to get straight A's on the level of service at all times. Generally speaking, as traffic volumes increase, the level of service decreases. Therefore, level of service is not a static measurement. It changes all the time. Think of traffic at midnight versus 5 p.m. These are 2 very different conditions. What we are trying to do with the design is to come up with the best design that balances the operating conditions, cost, right-of-way impacts, and environmental impacts. This is typically about a level of service C. In other words, we know there will be some congestion during peak periods, but congestion will be lessened with the design, and there will be more times when there is no congestion. There are a lot of technical terms about traffic volumes and peak traffic. This basically means the busiest times of the day. Think about when you'd expect there to be more traffic, such as the morning and the evening commute. When we look at a project, we look at those peak hours, and then we project those out to a future or a design year. For this project, we used regional traffic models that considered past and predicted trends in traffic and population and economic growth. In this case, the future year we looked at was 2024 and 2044. In addition to the future years, we also consider a build and a no-build option. What happens if we build it, and what happens if we don't? In the 3 roadway sections we are discussing tonight, with 2 lanes of travel in each direction, traffic volumes have increased between 25 and 40% between 2009 and 2015. Traffic volumes are expected to continue to increase about another 10% from the 2016 traffic volumes to the 2024 traffic volumes. When we look at capacity on the roadway is already congested and is operating at a level of service F for the morning and evening commutes. Adding more traffic will only make that worse, meaning we will have a roadway that is operating at a level of service F much more frequently if we do not address the capacity issues. Increased congestion is associated with longer travel times and increased potential for crashes, not to mention the frustration experienced by drivers. As some of you may know, the Turnpike runs parallel to US Route 3 in this area, due to the location of the Turnpike. When traffic begins to back up, drivers seek alternate routes such as US Route 3, causing more delays on local roads. By widening the Turnpike, it is also expected that some of this diverting traffic will not seek this alternate route because it will be easier and less congested and faster to remain on the Turnpike. Without getting into too much more detail, I'd like to go over the general idea of what the traffic information means for this project. For those of you who are interested in a more detailed review of the traffic data, this information is available on the project website, again at www.everettturnpikewidening.com, in the draft environmental study that John Evans will discuss later. This basic concept that we're discussing tonight is that in 2044, with the added lane, nearly all of the current and future traffic demand is serviced. In the no-build condition, nearly 1/3 of the projected demand is unmet. The build condition generally allows improved level of service, less delay, and more demand being met in 2024 and 2044 compared to the current traffic conditions. Again, this maintains the current ramp configuration and tolling structure. Now, if we widen the Turnpike, we have to consider not only the roadway, but the bridges that tie into that roadway network. There are several bridges associated with the Turnpike that have structural and capacity deficiencies that need to be addressed. This includes widening the bridges on the Turnpike to accommodate the width for 3 lanes, lengthening the overpass bridges that span over the Turnpike, and addressing bridges which are on the state's red list. The state's red list are bridges that are found after inspection to be structurally deficient. There are 4 primary structures that are proposed for replacement as a part of this project. These are the Turnpike over the Pennachuck River in Nashua and Merrimack, the Wire Road and Babusick Lake Road bridges over the Turnpike in Merrimack, and lastly the Turnpike over the Babusick Brook in Merrimack. We have been very appreciative of the town of Merrimack, who has been a great partner in assisting with the best solutions for these bridges. Ralph Faulkner will discuss the details of the bridge work in more detail shortly. The proposed design we are going to show you this evening is a preliminary plan, approximately 30% designed, so we are fairly early in the design stages. What we are presenting is the preferred alternative of many different alternatives that we evaluated. We are not going to discuss the alternatives this evening, as we reviewed some of those previously at other meetings and are summarized in the environmental study. As we get into the design presentation, there will be discussion about right-of-way acquisitions. It is my understanding that those of you who may be impacted were notified by certified letter. The process for right-of-way acquisitions will be discussed following the design portion of the presentation. I would now like to ask Rob Faulkner to discuss the project layout in more detail using the plans on the presentation board. Rob?
Thanks, Wendy. You hear me? No? How about now? Better? Great. So before I go over the preferred alternative, I'd just like to kind of give you an overview of all the graphics and displays that are behind me. I know you've all had an opportunity to look at them a little earlier, but as Wendy had mentioned, the project is broken up into 3 segments, and right now the Turnpike plans run south to north as you look left to right. Over here, with the larger scale plans of the Babusick Lake Road and Wire Road overpass, they're actually rotated, so they run south to north from the bottom of the page to the top. Over here on the left, we have the southern segment, which is in Nashua and Merrimack. We have our middle segment here, which is in Merrimack, which also includes the Babusick Lake Road and the Wire Road overpasses. And then we have the northern segment over here, which is in Bedford. We have our proposed and existing typical sections here for Babusick Lake Road and Wire Road. Over on the far right, we have the proposed typical sections for the Turnpike, as well as the noise barriers that are going to be proposed at various segments throughout the corridor. We also have profiles here for a segment of the Turnpike at Babusick Brook, as well as Babusick Lake Road and Wire Road, and the profile basically demonstrates the grade of the road as you're driving along it as the road goes up and down. The plans are created at a scale, the Turnpike plans are created at a scale of 1 inch equals 100 feet. And the Babusick Lake Road and the Wire Road plans are created at a scale of 1 inch equals 50 feet. So that means for every inch on the paper represents 100 feet or 50 feet on the ground. The profiles are created at an exaggerated vertical scale so that you can better see the change in elevations as you're going down the roadway. If we look at the various colors, the yellow represents new pavement and a new travel lane. The brown represents paved shoulders. The light yellow represents where we're overlaying the existing pavement. The purple color represents sidewalk, which we're only proposing on Babusick Lake Road. The orange represents driveways or access areas. And then the green represents the slope work or the earthwork that's necessary to construct the roadway. Looking at the typical section for the Turnpike, to improve the safety and the mobility through the corridor, the typical section on the Turnpike is consistent. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be adding a third lane to the outside and a 10-foot shoulder, and then paving the grass median and replacing the non-standard barrier with concrete median barrier. During construction of the Turnpike, we're going to be maintaining 2 lanes of traffic in each direction. This might change. The number of lanes might actually be reduced at sometimes for specific construction activities like setting beams over active travelways. But in general, we're striving to maintain 2 lanes of traffic in each direction at all times. So starting with the southern segment, down in Nashua, extending up into Merrimack, between exits 8 and 10, it's about 1.7 miles long. It begins about 1,500 feet north of Somerset Parkway overpass. We match into the existing 3-lane section, and from there we begin adding our third lane and improving the existing median and median barrier. As we come up to the bridges over Bowers Pond and the Pennachuck Brook, because of their poor condition and the width can't accommodate the new wider section, we're going to be replacing that bridge with a wider bridge. We're also going to be shifting the roadway to the east so that we can maintain 2 lanes of traffic during construction, and that will also minimize impacts to the western banks of Bowers Brook. We continue the widened section to the north. As we approach exit 10, we'll be improving the northbound on or northbound off and the southbound on ramps to accommodate the new wider section, and then tie into the existing Turnpike just south of Industrial Drive. In order to improve the water quality and treat the stormwater that's going to be coming off of the pavement areas, we're proposing water quality treatment areas throughout the corridor. In the southern segment, we have a water quality treatment area proposed at the southern limits. Water quality treatment areas proposed on either side of the Pennachuck Brook, Bowers Pond, and then a water quality treatment area at the southbound on-ramp location as well. There may be in the southern segment some minor utility impacts associated with the roadway widening, and those will be addressed in final design. For right-of-way impacts for the roadway widening, there are no right-of-way impacts, but for the construction of the water quality treatment areas, there will be a need for some partial property acquisitions. So moving on to the middle segment, this begins south of exit 11 and continues north through exit 12 and ties in just south of the airport access road. The segment begins about 3,000 feet south of exit 11 with the construction of some noise barriers adjacent to the northbound barrel as well as the southbound barrel in the exit 11 vicinity. The Turnpike improvements begin at the Greeley Street Bridge, and we begin adding our third lane and median improvements and continue north over Natatuck Brook. We'll be reconstructing several hundred feet of the existing ramps, again, to accommodate the existing Turnpike section. We continue across Natatuck Brook with a 3-lane section in each direction. Continuing up to the Sohegan River Bridge. The Sohegan River Bridge is actually wide enough to accommodate the new roadway section, so we're not going to be making any improvements to that bridge. Continue north as we get into the curve under the Babusick Lake Road underpass. Continuing through to Wire Road, and then Babusick Brook, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to talk about those 3 bridges in just a minute. Continue north up to exit 12, again improving the ramp areas there to accommodate the new roadway section. Pass by Bedford Road, continue further north, and then we tie in just south of where the overhead transmission lines are. In addition to the noise barriers that I mentioned here at the southern limits, we're going to have noise barriers here adjacent to the Merrimack High School. We're going to have noise barriers also proposed adjacent to Clay Street and Wire Road. And then from Wire Road to Sunnydale Drive. And then as we get further north, up here to Kimberly Drive and Shelburne Road area. Up in here and here. To review the bridges, the Greeley Street Bridge is in good condition. It doesn't require any major rehabilitation or replacement, but as part of this project, we will be replacing the bridge railing and then doing some minor rehabilitation to the bridge. For the F.E. Everett over the Babusick Brook, which is here, the existing twin cell box culverts are in fair condition, but they don't have the hydraulic capacity. They're too small to pass a design storm for the larger flood events, so that causes flooding. So as part of this project, what we're proposing to do is replacing the twin cell box culverts with a larger single span bridge that will adequately be able to pass that design flow. To make sure that we have the proper clearance from the flood elevation to the turnpike, we're also proposing on raising the turnpike about 3 feet in that area. So that increase in profile, which you can see down here, with the Babusick Brook crossing right here, is about 3 feet at the crossing. We match in at about Wire Road, increase the profile, and then we tie back in about 2,000 feet further to the north. Moving over to the Babusick Lake Road, and remember this is at a larger scale, so these plans are at 1 inch equals 50 feet, and the plan is also rotated, so south is at the bottom of the page, north is at the top, and then you have west to east. So the Babusick Lake Road Bridge is on the state's red list. It's in poor condition, and in addition to that, the bridge's configuration over the turnpike can't accommodate the new wider section. There's a pier in the center median, and then there are 2 piers right adjacent to the northbound and the southbound shoulders. So to accommodate the new wider turnpike section, we're going to be replacing that bridge with a single span structure. In order to clear span the entire turnpike, we need a much deeper beam. So in order to do that, we're going to be raising Babusick Lake Road about 6 feet at the crossing. And then in order to transition back to the existing grades on either side, we're going to be reconstructing about 900 feet of the western approach and about 850 feet of the eastern approach. During construction, a temporary bridge is going to be installed or put in place, likely to the south, that'll maintain 2 lanes of traffic while the new bridge is being constructed. Once the new bridge is constructed, the temporary bridge will be removed and then traffic will be put back onto the new bridge. The proposed typical section or roadway section for Babusick Lake Road is going to be 2 11-foot travel lanes, 5-foot shoulders. We're going to be replacing the existing sidewalk on the south and installing a new sidewalk on the north with 6-foot bituminous sidewalks. As we move over to Wire Road is in the Wire Road Bridge is in fair condition, but similar to Babusick Lake Road Bridge, again, that configuration cannot accommodate the new wider turnpike section with the center pier and the piers on either side of the shoulders. So similar to Babusick Lake Road, we're going to be replacing this bridge with a single span structure, again requiring a deeper beam raising that roadway about 6 feet as well, which is also going to require us to reconstruct several hundred feet of each approach. We're also going to be shifting the roadway about 25 feet to the north so that we can maintain one lane of traffic on the existing bridge while the new bridge is being constructed. So there will be alternating one-way traffic on Wire Road during the bridge's construction. Once the new bridge is constructed, the existing bridge will be removed, and then 2 lanes of traffic will be placed onto the new bridge. The proposed typical section for Wire Road will be 2 11-foot lanes and then 5-foot shoulders without sidewalk. Similar to the southern segment, we have water quality treatment areas. There's 30 water quality treatment areas located throughout this segment, and they're shown here on the plans, and they are a combination of extended detention basins, vegetated treatment swales, or gravel wetlands. The widening is going to have several utility impacts. There is a sewer crossing at Natatuck Brook that will need to be relocated. There are overhead transmission lines at a couple of locations throughout the corridor that may be impacted as well. On Babusick Lake Road and Wire Road, we have pole relocations that will be required, as well as underground telecommunications and water lines and gas as well. We will have right-of-way impacts. Again, temporary construction easements and some temporary and permanent slope easements and partial property acquisitions are going to be necessary. At the Natatuck Brook area, at Dumpling Brook, at the Exit 11 ramps, and then at Babusick Lake Road and Wire Road, again, temporary construction easements and slope easements for construction of the driveways and the bridge as well. Moving on to the northern segment. The northern segment actually starts north of the Airport Access Road interchange. We begin adding our third lane here, continue under Route 3 through the Route 101-293 interchange, and then tie into the existing FE Everett adjacent to the Merrimack River here at the 293-101 ramps. This segment is about 1.3 miles long and also crosses Patton Brook in this vicinity. For drainage and water quality improvements, we have a proposed water quality treatment here at the southern limits, as well as in the infield of the northbound off-ramp, northbound on-ramp in this location as well. Utility impacts may include overhead transmission lines here at the ramp locations, as well as an existing sewer crossing at the northern limits. And the right-of-way impacts in this segment would be really for the water quality treatment area here at the southern area, as well as the improvements to the ramps that are necessary to accommodate the proposed widened section. So with that, that concludes my presentation. I'll turn it back over to Wendy.
Thank you, Rob. As noted, there will be property impacts in the form of right-of-way acquisitions and easements that will need to be acquired for this project. This project impacts approximately 50 owners for parcel acquisitions and easements along the corridor. I would now like to ask Chuck Schmidt to provide an overview of the right-of-way process. Chuck?
Thank you, Wendy. Members of the special committee, ladies and gentlemen. Before I go into the right-of-way process procedures tonight, thank you. There's a couple of things I'd like to address first. As Councilor Wheeler said, you can, if anyone wishes to submit any additional testimony as a result of this hearing, or in regard to the plans that you've seen, you can address the material to the chairperson of the special committee, and mail it to the address that you see on this hearing handout map within 10 days of tonight's hearing, and it will become part of the official record. It will receive equal consideration to anything presented tonight. These maps are available for any of the department staff in the lobby behind me and to my left, or in the lobby outside the auditorium. We also have with us tonight copies of a booklet entitled Public Projects in Your Property, which describes the right-of-way acquisition and relocation assistance procedures that are utilized by the state. This booklet is especially useful for those property owners affected by this proposed project. Again, these are available from the department staff or on the table outside of the auditorium. If after reviewing the information received at this hearing in the 10-day comment period, the special committee finds necessity for this layout, several things will happen first. With approval to proceed with the design of this project, design plans will be developed. Then the department will prepare appraisals for each of the properties impacted by the proposed construction that you see on the plans. An appraiser representing the department will contact each owner to appraise their property. The appraisals will reflect the fair market value of the property rights needed for the new construction. Prior to starting negotiations, the appraisals are reviewed separately to ensure that all appraisals are accurate and have taken into account all applicable approaches to value. Value in the reviewed and finalized appraisal will be the offer of compensation used by the department as a basis for negotiations. A right-of-way agent from the department will visit each property owner and discuss each acquisition separately. This is an opportunity for the owners to ask questions and bring up any concerns that they may have. If the property owner accepts the offer, deeds will be prepared, ownership is transferred to the state, and compensation is provided to the owner. If negotiations between the owner and the department fail, the matter will be filed with the New Hampshire Board of Tax and Land Appeals, where the owner will have the opportunity to argue for additional compensation. Please understand that this can be done with or without an attorney. After the board issues its ruling on just compensation, either party can appeal the board's decision to the Superior Court if they are unsatisfied. Any time after this hearing or before design approval, all information in support of this hearing is available at the department's headquarters in Concord for your inspection and copying. That's all I have, Wendy. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. The environmental concerns along the corridor are critical during the development of any project. I would now like to ask John Evans to briefly summarize the findings from the environmental study. John?
Thank you, Wendy. Good evening, members of the Special Committee, ladies and gentlemen. Pursuant to the New Hampshire Department of Transportation's policies and procedures, the department has evaluated alternatives to the proposed project and the potential impacts this project will have upon the surrounding social, economic, and natural environments. Coordination was established and input received from federal and state agencies, including the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services, the New Hampshire Fish and Game Department, the New Hampshire Office of Strategic Initiatives, and the New Hampshire Department of Natural and Cultural Resources. In addition, input was received from the City of Nashua, the towns of Merrimack and Bedford, regional officials, as well as concerned citizens. After evaluation of the information gathered, an environmental study was prepared. The following is a brief summary of the information contained in that document. Completion of the proposed project is not expected to result in air quality impacts. Noise impacts at adjacent properties have been identified throughout the project corridor. Noise abatement measures for all impacts have been evaluated in accordance with the department's noise policy, and all such measures which were determined feasible and reasonable have been incorporated into the proposed project design shown on the plans today. Temporary increases in noise and dust levels are anticipated during construction of the project. These temporary increases are expected to return to normal after construction. Construction of the proposed highway improvements will require property acquisitions totaling approximately 13.5 acres outside the limits of the existing right-of-way. This project will not require the removal of any residential or commercial structures. Impacts to two conservation properties have been identified within the project corridor: the Dumpling Brook Wildlife Management Area, owned by the New Hampshire Fish and Game Department, and the Mini Cooper Auto Dealer Conservation Easement in the town of Bedford. Impacts to the Dumpling Brook Wildlife Management Area total approximately 0.59 acres, and impacts to the Mini Cooper easement total approximately 0.27 acres. Compensation for the proposed impacts will be negotiated with all of the involved parties prior to construction. The proposed project will require dredge and fill activities within areas under the jurisdiction of the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services Wetlands Bureau and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, totaling approximately 2 acres. The department has been and will continue to coordinate with the appropriate agencies to ensure that all wetland impacts are minimized to the maximum extent practicable. Numerous water bodies, including the Sauhegan River, the Merrimack River, Pennachuck Brook, Natticook Brook, Babusick Brook, Dumpling Brook, Patton Brook, and multiple other unnamed water bodies are located in proximity to the project area. In order to promote water quality, the department will incorporate appropriate stormwater treatment measures into the design of the project. The contractor will also be required to prepare a stormwater pollution prevention plan prior to the commencement of construction activities. The proposed project will require impacts within the floodway and floodplain of Pennachuck Brook, Natticook Brook, Babusick Brook, and Patton Brook. The department has been and will continue to coordinate with the New Hampshire Office of Strategic Initiatives and the Federal Emergency Management Agency in order to ensure that area flooding conditions will not adversely affect the proposed, will not adversely be affected by the proposed project. The project area has been evaluated and reviewed by the New Hampshire Division of Historical Resources for potential cultural for the presence of cultural resources. From these reviews, it was established that the project would not result in any adverse impacts to any historic or archaeological resources. The environmental study was made available for public review and comment on August 31st, 2018, and will remain open for comment until 10 days after this public hearing. If anyone has any comments on the environmental study or any other natural, cultural, or socioeconomic resource concerns associated with this project, please bring them to our attention tonight or within the 10-day comment period following the public hearing. Copies of the environmental study are available on the project website and are available for review after the hearing. Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you, John. Next, I'd like to review the project cost and the proposed schedule. This project is being funded through the Turnpike Capital Improvement Program using toll revenues under the current toll structure. No local funds are anticipated or required to construct the project. The one area where local funds might be involved is where there are any requested upgrades to municipally owned utilities. Other municipal costs could also come from any municipally owned proposed utility, such as a new sewer or new water line, and future sidewalk maintenance once the project is complete. It's important to mention that there are sidewalks being proposed on Babusick Lake Road, which will require the town of Merrimack to sign an agreement with us to commit to future summer and winter maintenance of the sidewalks before we can construct them. If the town does not enter into the standard agreement with the department, the sidewalks will be removed from the project. Other standard agreements, such as our municipal works zone agreement, will also need to be entered into prior to releasing these projects for construction. The current cost estimate for the project is a construction cost of $114 million. Engineering costs of $13 million, and right-of-way acquisition costs of $6,800,000 for a total project cost of $133,800,000. This is in today's dollars, so once inflation is added, this number is increased and is consistent with the 10-year plan. As stated, the overall project will be funded with Turnpike funds through the Turnpike Capital Program. If the special committee finds for the necessity of the layout, and this project will continue to final design and right-of-way acquisition with anticipated construction beginning in 2021 and extending through 2025. The final decision on how and when we will construct the project will be developed as part of the final design. For example, the project could be one large construction project or multiple smaller construction projects. As I said, this will be evaluated during the final design. Before we can proceed with the design of the project, there are a few short-term goals that we need to meet, such as receiving the testimony here tonight and any more written testimony within the next 10 days. Once all testimony is received, we will address all of those points, if not addressed here tonight, and we will prepare a report called the Report of the Commissioner. This report will contain all of these responses. Once that report is complete, it will be presented to the special committee. If they feel we have appropriately addressed the issues, they will then vote for the necessity of the project. If the vote reveals a finding of necessity for the project and upon completion of the environmental process, then the project will move forward towards final design. I would like to thank everyone, including the special committee, for coming and sharing your valuable time with us this evening and for your testimony. Councilor Wheeler, this concludes the department's formal presentation of this F.E. Everett Turnpike reconstruction project. I respectfully request this special committee find in favor of the layout of the project as presented here this evening.
Thank you, Wendy. And this is the part of our program where we hear from you, your comments, your opposition, your support, and whatever else is on your mind. I'd like to start that part of the presentation. I see a lot of state representatives here or state senators. Is there any state elected official that would like to comment on this project at this time? Are there any local officials, planning board members, town council that would like to comment on this project at this time? If you could go, recognize you, and if you could go to the microphone and state your name and address for the record and who you're representing if it's a local government.
Thank you, Commissioner Wheeler. My name is Nelson Disco. I'm here tonight representing the Merrimack Town Center Committee. I'm also on the Merrimack Planning Board. I want to applaud this design for its inclusion. The Town Center Committee is dedicated to building sidewalks and pedestrian walkways through the center of town. I want to commend the design for the inclusion of a sidewalk at the Babusick Lake Road Bridge. I would also advocate for this similar treatment on the Wire Road Bridge. And recognizing that it may be expensive, if it, as a minimum, if the bridge could include the width for the sidewalk and for the right-of-way to include the width for a sidewalk to be included at a later time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Councilor Rothaus?
Good evening. Thank you for your time tonight. The town absolutely appreciates the widening of the Everett Turnpike through our community because we are impacted greatly daily with it. Nelson actually spoke to the one comment I wanted to make, and that was the Wire Road Bridge, possibility of a sidewalk there. I guess one of my big concerns is that I happen to reside right off exit 12 in a neighborhood that abuts the Everett Turnpike. I happen to be at the far end of the neighborhood, so I really will have no impact. But a number of neighbors, I want to say it's Vista Way, will have an absolute impact. And I think it was, I didn't hear that there was any sound barrier planned for that. I may have missed it, and I didn't get here early enough to look again at the plan, but that's something. If it's not there, I'm just curious why it isn't, and I can find that out later. But I think that should be contemplated for sure. And actually, for now, I think that's it. But I appreciate all of your time this evening. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will get you answers to those questions. Thank you for bringing that up. Are there any other local officials who would like to comment at this time? Okay, then I'm going to open up the hearing to those who have submitted the green cards, and remind the audience that if you didn't submit a card yet and you decide you want to speak, just kind of work your way behind me. The green cards are over here, and they will get here. So you may change your mind, or you may think of something else after you hear other comments. With that, I'll call on Janet Sear.
Hi, my name is Janet Sear, and I reside at 93A East Ridge Road. And I want to applaud you. I totally support the expansion. My problem is that there is a proposed water treatment area right in my backyard. I mean, you're going to buy the right-of-way in that area, and you're going to be right in my backyard. And the property values will go down, obviously, and in order to do that, I think you will have to, my property has, the exit 11 is how it's going to get impacted. Exit 11 right now is going, is on my backyard, but there are trees there now, and there's a hill that goes down. So the noise is not good, but it's not too bad. But if you have to remove those trees in order to do that waste treatment area, the noise is going to be tremendous. So I would like you to consider putting that water treatment containment area elsewhere. I understand you need to put it on the one side or the other of the Natticook Brook, and I understand that, but there are other areas that you could look at that would not impact property values. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. And now we'll hear from Gary LeBlanc. Gary, are you here?
I'm here.
There we go.
My name's Gary LeBlanc. I live over at 2 Ministerial Drive. I have about 8 acres that runs along the highway, and I guess my biggest concern is why there's no noise barrier being put up there with Vista Way and Ministerial and Davis. I went out there tonight and I just took a quick reading, if I can find it. Oops, that's not it. Of the sound level. I won't be able to find it. Here it is. This is pretty much walking out my back slider, you know, about 5:30 tonight, my pool area. You know, this is what I hear before this is widening. I'm sure a lot of other people on Vista and Davis, this is what they hear. And I guess my concern is, why is there no barrier being put up? And the test that was done, I think, was in 2016, and since then they've taken down more trees on the highway along the easement and also where the power lines are. So I'd like to get another test to see if we qualify. That's all.
Okay. Thank you, Gary. Jack Workman, please.
Since I'm terrible at speaking in front of people, I'm here representing, my name is Jack Workman. I live in the Camp Sargent Co-op, and I'm a board member, and here representing them, saying that we do definitely support the improvement and definitely want the sound barrier that you have proposed to put there. Much like the gentleman that was just here, we pretty much feel like we live on the highway with all the noise, so thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Bill Jacobson.
Hi, Phil Jacobson, 67 East Ridge Road. I am quite surprised that you're not putting up a sound barrier behind the East Ridge condominiums where we need it the most. I literally sleep with trucks and motorcycles and cars in my bedroom. And this is not white noise. It's not steady. It's intermittent, so it's very disruptive. And what you got going on here is that you're going to bring that road even closer to the backside of our condominiums, and it's going to get even worse. So I'm looking at some of those places over there that are getting sound barriers, and I can't see that they're any closer to the highway than we are. We're going to be very close to it. So I'd like to just put in my 2 cents here and say that I really would like to see a sound barrier behind the East Ridge condominiums. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Muse from Vadney Road. Did I get that right, the name? Vadney, maybe. Vandy?
Thank you. I'm Derek Muse, 3 Vanden Road, Merrimack, New Hampshire. Just like you to clarify a statement made by Executive Council member earlier. You said that people who are impacted by this would be contacted. Were you referring to for easement, or were you referring to a noise level?
I'll let the department clarify that in our opening comments, that the department would contact the property owners.
As far as easement or for noise levels?
You definitely will be contacted regarding the easement acquisitions. Probably twice. The appraisal process includes a meeting with the property owner, as well as once we present the offer, we would sit with you. I can't speak about the sound barrier itself.
So the statement was about easement and not about noise level?
I believe it was, sir. Yeah.
Okay.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. Diane LaFontaine, I believe it is. Diane from 9 Holt Street, are you here? Maybe not? Okay. How about Michael Gill? Yeah, okay.
Hello, my name is Mike Gill. I purchased 53 Babusick Lake Road about a year ago, maybe a little more than a year. And it was not disclosed to me that this was happening, by the realtor or the sellers. But I'm the first house on the other side of the bridge on the north side of Babusick Lake. So this is going to significantly impact my property through noise, but also aesthetics, where it looks like they're going to be removing all the trees that are a barrier between me and the highway. I don't believe there is a noise barrier that's going up there. This is going to directly affect the resale value of my property, but then also between water drainage, where you're increasing the height, where I already have issues, and also with the increase in the height of the bridge. This is my first winter here. Somebody slid down the bridge and took out my mailbox this winter already. So that is, clear. I have safety concerns, let alone if you're taking any more of the front of my house, the front yard. I'm already very close to a very busy street. So, I bought a 4-bedroom house in Merrimack to try to grow a family here, and it's just, making it a little more dangerous and also much less appealing as far as the resale value of my house. So I just want to make sure to go on the record, and I know you guys are going to have to address stuff later on about that, but I mean, that's, a big concern of mine. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you. Yeah. Rosemarie Rung.
Rosemary Rung, 21 Ministerial Drive. 3 points I want to make. First, I want to thank Jonathan Evans, because I've been going back and forth with him for a few weeks about the sound impact on Area Q, which I live right next to Finley Roth House, and we're not directly impacted, but a lot of our neighbors are. And so I think more information about the number of trees that are going to come down, or any alternative things that we can do to help lessen that noise impact, would be very much appreciated. I also want to echo what Mr. Disco said about the highways on Wire Road. Wire Road actually connects many neighborhoods to the library, to the playground, to playing fields at Twin Bridge Park. And it's probably as important for them to have sidewalks to connect those families to those sites. Plus, I know when we have our 4th of July celebration in Merrimack and other parades, that's a very busy route for people. Rather than driving into town, they cross over Wire Road. So I think, if we're going to build the bridge, it would behoove us to be penny wise and pound foolish, but put the sidewalks in at that time. And then the last point I want to make is, when there were some improvements on, I forget what bridge it was on the highway, there was a lot of cooperation between the Turnpike, and I think Representative LaRue was involved in this, in making sure that it was in that Marauders Bridge, that the state worked with the town to make sure there was some pathways under the bridge. And that's a very important recreational part of our town. A lot of people use that hikes. There's going to be a 5K race down there on Saturday. So if we could keep the conversation going to seek opportunities to have that cooperation, so that when that work is being done on the bridge, that we're not excluding any present or future opportunities for recreation. Also, when the bridge over Babusick Brook, because I envision that might be a great kayaking area at one point. If some of the debris dams get cleared, we could actually have kayaking from the Wallace Road Bridge in Bedford, which is off of Bedford Road, in that area, right down through Babusick Brook. So if we're going to be doing some of the work, and if NHES is going to get involved, or DES, I mean, it would behoove us to keep the cooperation going so we don't exclude future opportunities from the work we're doing now. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. George May.
My name is George May, 157 Natticook Road, Merrimack. I've got a simple request. I would like, as part of the construction, which I completely favor, I think this is a project that's well overdue. But during the construction, if signs could be put up at all of the water crossings identifying the brook, so that people going up and down the Turnpike, when they cross Pennachuck Brook, they'd see the name Pennachuck Brook on the side of the road. We already have a sign at the on the Sauhegan River. It was quite a process. I asked for that for about 5 years, and ended up DES paid for it, not the highway. So what I'd like to do is just have signs on both sides that would mention Pennachuck Brook, Natticook Brook, the Sauhegan River, which already has a sign. It also has a sign that's showing it's a protected river. I'm a member of the Sauhegan Watershed Association, the Sauhegan River Local Advisory Committee, and the Lower Merrimack River Local Advisory Committee. And we're charged with trying to protect these water bodies. This would really help. It's hard to protect something unless it's been identified. So all of the other brooks, as you're crossing to Dumpling Brook, which is a big concern right now with the PFOAs at St. Gobain. And then further north, I believe the border between Merrimack, or the original border between Merrimack and Bedford, what I call Pointer Club Brook. It may have a different name as it crosses the highway there. But if those signs could be put up, that would, I think, really help the environment.
Thank you, George. Gary Krupp.
Hi, Gary Krupp from 4 Ministerial Drive, and so I live in the same neighborhood as Rosemary and Gary LeBlanc, who spoke earlier, and Finley. As a matter of fact, I'm Gary LeBlanc's next door neighbor, and I couldn't have said it better than he did with his phone tonight. My wife and I go into the backyard to sit on our patio. We're practically shouting at each other as it is. So the idea of taking out more trees without a noise barrier is something that we're not looking forward to. So there's another way we can look at that. I understand that apparently not enough houses are impacted by the improvement that a noise barrier that would give us. I think, like Gary said, the noise measurement needs to be taken again. You know, there's been more trees that have been taken out since that first measurement was taken. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Sonia McDonald, please.
Hi, I'm Sonia McDonald. I live at 97 East Ridge Road. And I thought I heard you say that there would be properties bought around exit 11. So if we're impacted, when would we be notified? And So that's one concern. And we live right where the ramp is coming onto the highway. As it is now, the noise is unbelievable. So if you could consider noise barriers, that would be really great. Behind East Ridge condos, if you expand that ramp anymore, I'm going to be able to serve coffee out my bedroom window. It is that close. I was also curious what the water management systems would look like, because I'm just picturing all the trees gone, and that does manage quite a bit of the sound. And finally, while construction is going on, if we incur damage to our property, who do we reach out to? And the reason I ask this is because at one point there was an accident on the highway. A helicopter landed near the exit, and my kitchen cupboard fell off the wall. So I'm just envisioning things like that happening. So anyway, thank you.
We'll get you that answer, Sonia. We got your contact information here. Jamie Page.
Hi, I'm Jamie Page. I own Boomer off of Executive Park Drive, along with the right across the street is the hotel. The hotel and I have been asking the state and the city to take down the berm and the trees, ironically the opposite of what everyone else is asking for here, for better visibility for commercial purposes. The rest of the exit's clear, just that section's not. So we're hoping you guys, while you're taking down what appears to be most of the berm, you'll finish taking the rest of it down so we have better visibility. Maybe you can move the trees to their houses.
Thank you, Jamie. Paul Mikolai, did I pronounce that right, Paul? Thank you, Paul. Callie.
I wear many hats here tonight. First of all, I'm the Assistant Town Manager of the Town of Merrimack. Just want to get that on the floor. So the first question is with that. You talk about noise barriers throughout the corridor. Could you look into something that's kind of graffiti-proof? I know that's not possible, but, you know, driving up and down, you see it in Manchester, you see it in Nashua. We have had the graffiti problem here in Merrimack, too, so just keep that in mind, please. The second one is the sidewalk on Wire Road. I live off of Wire Road on Mallard Point. I run into more people in the morning going to my commute of 1.5 miles on Wire Road than I do all day long driving around the town of Merrimack. Just a thought, you're seriously thinking about putting a sidewalk on Wire Road. That is one of the heavy traveled roads when the Turnpike is backed up. This morning, my 3-minute commute turned into a 10-minute commute because there was traffic on the highway. So, and a lot of people were walking, and it gets kind of dangerous. The third thing is, like I said, I am on the Mallard Point Homeowners Association, and with you raising the highway 6 feet in that area, we have houses on Brant Drive and Mallard Point now that sit well above the highway, and we still hear the noise. But raising up the highway 6 feet and widening it, I can see some of those trees being taken out. I know it's kind of tough because of Babuzik Brook, the way the water flows through Babuzik Brook. Putting in a noise barrier, you're doing it on the other side of Wire Road, on the southerly side. Maybe just to look at something, a berm, something. You're raising the highway up 6 feet. Most of the houses do sit higher than the highway, but there's going to be some noise concerns, as you heard, throughout there and throughout most of the town. Thank you for your time, and thank you for coming.
Thank you, Paul. Carol Perkins, are you here from the Camp Sargent Road Co-op?
Hi, I'm Carol Perkins from Camp Sargent Co-op. I've lived there more than 30 years. The highway is so close to the park that it's probably about 25 yards, probably. It wasn't always that close because the toll booth wasn't that close. But now it's very close. And I know this project, I think, isn't going to affect exit 11. It's going to be before and after, if I'm right. But however, The noise is terrible, because just imagine 25 yards from the highway or the toll booth, and when a motorcycle goes through that toll booth, you think you're at Loudon. And the same with 18-wheelers, the noise level is terrible. We just need somebody to come out there maybe and measure the sound and see how loud it is. I mean, I'm already losing my hearing because it's so loud, but it is, the noise level is terrible. So I would appreciate it if someone could take a sound test, if there is such a thing, and maybe consider a sound barrier. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. That concludes my list of green cards. Oh, Representative LaRue has one, I think. Okay.
Representative Bob LaRue, Town of Merrimack, Back River Road. Thank you for your presentation tonight. I appreciate you folks being here. Appreciate everybody coming out. A couple of questions I would have is, number one, I believe, unless something's been changed in the NRPC plan, there were plans to make a full interchange of exit 12. I have not heard that discussed tonight.
Does the department have a quick comment on that, on exit 12?
We do. The expansion of the full interchange was looked at originally, but it was not included as part of the scope to expand and widen the turnpike. There are no improvements to that which are shown on the plans. One of the outcomes of that were when they started to look at it, there were some substantial property acquisitions in both of the northerly quadrants, and it also would have required the relocation of Back River Road and several property full acquisitions at that location. It was felt to be outside the scope of just a widening for capacity.
The state owns the property from Norm's Transmission to Bedford Road. Why can't at least have an exit ramp, which is not acquiring any private property? This is state property. So why can't you put an exit ramp southbound?
We did look at it, and it doesn't fit without impacts outside of the right-of-way.
And the other issue we have is, I'm on the Merrimack Highway Safety Committee. I've been on that committee for about 37 years. Councilor Rodhouse is here also, and I believe Captain Dudash is here also. One of the problems that we have, and we keep hearing it time and time again, is the berm on exit 13. When you're traveling north, you want to get off to come to Merrimack, there's a berm underneath the overpass, just after the overpass. And when the traffic is southbound to get off at 13 and northbound, you cannot see that traffic. Now, there are records, you people, not necessarily you, but DOT has many communications from the Merrimack Highway Safety Committee asking you folks to do something about that berm by cutting it down or doing something. And yet, our request is going unanswered. All we hear is nothing we can do about it. I'm sorry, that's not an acceptable answer. Something has to be done before somebody gets killed over there. You can talk to any of the Merrimack residents who use those exits, and they will tell you how close they come. Every time they use that ramp, they come close to being hit. So can something be done about that?
Does DOT want to respond at this time?
We'll consider your request, and we'll look at it as part of the report of the commission.
I'd be more than happy to meet with DOT representatives and town officials, not to look at it on paper, but to physically go down there, drive it, and look at it. Otherwise, if you look at it on a piece of paper, it ain't going to accomplish anything.
True. I'll look into the history and see where the correspondence has gone. We'll look into it as part of the response.
And I'm asking you to include me and Councilor Rodhouse in your communiques. Thank you.
Yeah, and Representative LaRue, I don't think a site visit is an unreasonable request. I think we can make that happen. I do have one more speaker now, Nat Fairbanks. Nate? Nat, that was right the first time. Okay, thank you.
My name is Nat Fairbanks at 5 Sand Hill Drive in Merrimack. I kind of count myself lucky because some of our neighbors got together and we found several mistakes in the initial draft of the noise study, so that our neighborhood, which previously was not even deemed impacted by the noise barrier, was all of a sudden adjusted to be impacted, and then enough homes were found to be benefited after we found additional mistakes that we now qualify for a noise barrier. So I hate to speak up about this because we're already getting what we want in our neighborhood. But I've heard so many other people speak tonight, particularly the neighbors just north of us on Ministerial Drive and Vista Way, and I'd just like to hear some more information about what was done to do the same analysis of the initial draft of the study where we found the mistakes. In my years as an engineer myself, I've certainly found if there's mistakes in one area, it's very likely that there are mistakes in other areas, and I realize that John Evans and others have gone through and reviewed some of this, but I'd just like to hear more information about that, as well as if, for example, I hadn't heard until tonight that the raising of the roadway surface over, I believe it's Babusick Brook, will extend, it seemed, far enough to actually increase the road height on Ministerial Drive and Vista Way adjacent to there. So I was wondering if that was taken into account in terms of determining the number of homes that might either be impacted or benefited from a noise wall. So I'd just like to hear more about that. But then as living in, I guess now O instead of Q, near Wire Road, I also want to say I'd love to see Wire Road get a sidewalk. So there's that too. Thank you.
Thank you, Nat. At this time, is there anyone else who would like to speak? Representative Berry.
Thank you very much for taking me the last minute. For the record, Dick Barry, 12 Kyle Road. I'm delighted that we're getting there, that it's coming in. It's going to take longer than we really want, but what I was hoping for was some discussion about traffic mitigation during the rush hour southbound from the toll to exit 8 and northbound from exit 8 back up to the tolls, if there's a way to mitigate the construction during those times. And I'm assuming you're also going to be doing some night work. I didn't hear any of that discussed.
We'll ask the department, do we have any specific traffic mitigation plans? Do you intend that any of this project will have to be done at night?
There will be parts of the project that will need to be done at night. For example, if we have a drainage crossing that has to go underneath the roadway, that would have to be done at night. Certain activities, such as setting bridge beams, those may have to be done at night. There are activities that we don't allow at night, such as blasting or very high noise operations. So we will have to do some, and it depends on the contractor's method of construction.
Okay, and you have a lot of experience with 93 northbound through Salem. Okay, thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thank you, Representative. Is there anyone else who would like to speak at this time? Have any thoughts? In the back? If you'd come forward and give us your name for the record.
Need a step ladder. Hi, my name is Glenn Guerin. I also live at Camp Sargent Road Co-op, and I'm very aware of the noise. My particular mobile home doesn't sit right back to back with the toll booth that happens to be right there. I'm not specifically sure what part of the highway is going to be impacted right there, if any at all. But if by any chance when you get to that area, moving the toll booth down to to meet the other one that's a little further down the street. I don't think there's any houses or anything in that area, and it would certainly help with that noise level. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Please come forward and give us your name for the record.
How's it going? Brian Roberts, part of that Clay Street neighborhood. So I want to thank John Evans for truly putting in the time and going into all the detail to help us out and to get that sound barrier. He was great responding back and forth with me through emails. We probably had several hundred. So thank you for that, and thank you for the whole team. My question is responding regarding moving forward, where there's some things today that I've learned in terms of the wire bridge shifting and the levels kind of the road going up and down. What is going to be the communication level moving forward, and how will we find out things in terms of schedule of construction, such as the bridge, the I-beams, so I can know when my dogs are going to wake me up because they're hearing noise in the middle of the night, and how will we, as people living in this area, get that information other than the website? Is there going to be announcements, anything in that regards?
I think I can take this one for the department, but we usually send out notices when particular traffic is going to be shut down. There'll probably be public notices. Certainly the town of Merrimack, if the work is in Merrimack, will be noticed, and if the department wants to add anything to that.
This project is a very large project, so we envision a public involvement component of it as we progress forward. And we envision doing similar things to like we do on I-93, where they have something you could subscribe to, and it says these are the latest updates. That's what we envision.
Okay, thank you for that.
Is there anyone else who'd like to give us your thoughts on this project? Seeing none, I will remind you that the record will be open for 10 days. Yeah, you can submit written comments. You may go home and process something you heard tonight, and you said, gee, I wish I had said that. Jot it down and send it to the department, and it will be given just as much weight as if you had said it in person here tonight. Thank you all for coming, and with that, we'll close the hearing.